we can go ahead and call our July Fine Neighborhood Association Board of Directors meeting to order. Laura Satino keeping time for us this evening, and Margaret keeping minutes for us tonight, and taking roll on any votes that come up, as well as attendance currently. So if you're whenever you're ready, go ahead and go through that.
In the interest of time, I'm just going to read the names of the people who are present. Brendan Maloney, Christina Smith, Breon Fonville, Remy Harrington, which leaves us with Aaron, Eddie, Sarah, Jared, Margaret, Laura, Jeremy, and Gwendolyn, and Steve and Jen as staff. Any corrections?
That looks right to me. My guess is that Brendan is probably trying to facilitate the guests that were scheduled to join us this evening, because I don't see that they've joined us yet, but I think that hopefully they will be in eventually. So we may need to be kind of bumping that, or I guess coming back to that agenda item later if we need to when they arrive. So we have our board meeting agenda. Again, apologies for that coming to you very late this time. June board meeting minutes, July executive committee minutes, financial statements were sent earlier this month. I'm going to continue to try to send those out separately and earlier because they are available earlier, and I feel like it's less to have to chew on all at one time if I send those a little bit earlier. So hopefully that works for everybody, even though it creates 2 different emails to reference for that. If you want me to reattach them to the board packet email, I could do that if that's helpful, so that they're all in one email to reference for later. But let me know, if you have any feedback about that. We do not appear to have any, let's see, consent items. A through D. I do have one update for the agenda, which is addition of item 6A2. We're going to change 6A to 6A1, and we're going to add in a 6A2. 6A2, my apologies. We are looking at 5A. Jen, I'm sorry, I think I told you 6 earlier, but that's actually, I believe, going to be in the 5A as an update. So 5A2, sorry, I misspoke there. 5A2 being selection of the tenant for 507 Vine. And 5A becoming 5A1. Any other additions or corrections for the agenda or any of the other consent items?
I did have a request for input from Emily Greenman, right? About the zoning changes that the city has proposed. They did do an open house to talk about that, some of their changes in adding 2 new things. I think we should add it. I don't know if it's an update or if it's just new business, or yeah, let's put it in business. So let's call.
Do you think what kind of time allotment do you think would be appropriate for doing that?
Controversial, so like 5 minutes.
I'm thinking, do you think that do you think there's a likelihood of that resulting in any board action? It sounds like it might be more of like an update / discussion item.
Yeah.
So we can put it in for, we'll add an item G, 5G.
5G or D?
Or should we just put that under other? There are going to be some other updates already. So maybe 5, we could split F up. I don't want to.
I don't have an F on my agenda.
Sorry. Let's go ahead and just go with 5G.
Okay.
All right. And Maggie, are you okay with leading a short discussion about that?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thank
She
you.
asked me today and was like, if you have bandwidth, and I was like, bah. So,
Yeah,
I can remember from the.
I can do my best to help out too. Thank you though.
Okay, so
You're talking, and when you say that, you're talking about the rezoning in terms of talking about like live, work, one, all that kind of planning
which I think
and development stuff. Yeah, okay.
which I think is actually going to replace some of this rezoning question from KNHS.
Right. Okay.
So I'm totally out of what we're already talking about.
No, well then that's probably the right place to put it. So that I think would be any other additions, anything else? I think there's room in the agenda for comments or discussion items in 7 and other updates that people might have. We can be open to anybody who has stuff to say for 5F. So without any additions or corrections beyond that, is there a motion to approve the consent items A through D?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I'm gonna, rather than going with the roll call, all in favor for the sake of votes tonight, I think I'm going to do a roll call if there are any opposed. Any opposed? Let's start with all in favor.
How about all in favor, raise your hand, or say aye if you don't have a picture.
Mm-hmm. And any opposed? Okay. I think there was a delay. Gwendolyn, you were raising your hand for the all in favor, I'm guessing. And okay, thank you. And so if there are, that's kind of how I think, just for the sake of time, I'll do the votes this evening. If there are any opposed, we'll do roll call. So thank you. We are at the guest citizen comment. I just got an update from Brendan that he is not going to be able to make it tonight. And I'm guessing that he's probably going to reschedule those guests for next month's meeting. So I think we will be able to move past item 3 on the agenda. I don't see any other guests or comments for that section, which brings us to 4, which is our check-in for tonight. Last month, we didn't really have the opportunity because we had kind of with intentionality scheduled that as a checkout for the night, thinking that that would actually be a better fit for the type of material we were covering. And then we unfortunately weren't able to get to that. And I think it was a little bit missed. So wanted to be able to devote time for us to be able to do that, especially in this life that we're in, where we're all so limited and kind of isolated away from each other. I think it's really important to prioritize that connectivity. So Steve has graciously agreed to lead us in a check-in this evening. And I have no idea what we're in for, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Have had the opportunity to speak with a number of folks, a number of the board members over the past couple of weeks, and I know a reoccurring theme, at least it's one that's within my own household, in my own realm, is a feeling of a lot of anxiety and really struggling to maintain professional, personal, all sorts of different anxieties up in the air. And I've appreciated when I've had the chance to talk to board members that we've been really open and frank with each other and really honest. And I have felt like there's been a lot of pain and a lot of anger. I got really angry the past couple of weeks that we somehow found ourselves back in this position and that we have to commit a lot of time towards the fall when I had hoped that this would have been wrapped up. So one of the questions that I had kind of deliberated about was, what are board members doing for self-care? And I thought like people could take a minute or 90 seconds to talk about it. And my interest in your answer is genuine and sincere, because what I'm doing is not working. So anything that people would share would be wonderful. And I don't know, I was told that the best way to do this, to keep it going, is just to choose someone, which is not normally how we do things. But
Thank you.
Margaret, because you're next and your head's down, I'm gonna pick on you, if you would. I would assume that everyone has the right to punt it along too if they don't want it. If they've got a great self-care and they don't want to share it, they can.
Yeah, feel free to pass, or feel free to abstain altogether, of course, as always.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Oh, yelling at my children a lot. That's a good. That makes everything better. Burning cupcakes, eating cupcakes. God, I got nothing, man. My self-care's important. And then my gym, my favorite gym, that was my self-care thing. That was like not so much self-care when you're trying to do it in your living room while your children crawl on you and your dog humps you. Turned into like a racist, misogynistic fucking dumpster fire. I get nothing. That's what I got. I get nothing.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about.
One foot in front of the other, and that's all I got.
Thank you.
I'm not dead yet, so that's working, I guess. No one's dead. Everyone's alive. So that's
Thank
what I
you. You may choose someone.
Aaron, you're right beside me on my screen, Harris. So I'm going to pick you. I'm passing the baton. You can stand up, you can grab it right off my hand.
Got it.
Good.
Thank you. I'm not doing very well the last couple weeks either. I've gotten off my meditation practice. I think though I've hit the wall with it, and I've been thinking the last 24 hours, definitely thinking about trying to focus more on self-care. So I'll definitely start meditating again in the mornings. And I just have kind of decided to generally reset and calm down and be more present again. I keep reminding myself that this is also an opportunity with my children to just be more present. So self-care, I have people over and talk. That's my self-care. Having people over and just having real conversations and talking through, inner friend counseling. That's my self-care at this point. I'm gonna, Aaron Bensinger, you're down here for me. So you have to reach up to your corner and grab the baton. There you go.
Got it. Great. This is gonna look great on YouTube. Hopefully we're in the same order on YouTube. I have also been doing a really bad job at taking care of myself. That is such an unfortunately really prevalent struggle, I think, for those of us who do things like sit on a nonprofit board dedicated to community improvement and community help. It's like we wouldn't be sitting here unpaid if we spent a lot of time in our free time like relaxing and kicking it and taking bubble baths or whatever. That said, something that has helped me feel really grounded, most nights Kaylin and I will take a walk around the neighborhood and we'll do a different route every night to just take like time to look at the architecture and look at the plants and like notice what's blooming and like steal people's raspberries and things like that has been really, really nice. I've also, I'm not a big fiction reader, but I've been reading a fiction book every night before I go to bed, just to kind of give my mind a little bit of a break and a little bit of like reprieve before I fall asleep. And then during the day when I read heavier, more theoretical stuff. But I had to stop reading such serious stuff right before bed because it was messing me up. So those are my two. Oh, everybody who has already spoken is adjacent to me. I'm gonna go to Eddie, who is right here on my screen.
You're below me in my screen, but okay. I'm just gonna grab all the corners. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I think that I can echo with the making sure that I'm reading fiction at night. I have a routine where I get up and I lay in bed before getting out of bed to listen to the news, and then that's it. Not allowed to listen or watch the news anymore. I just kind of check to see if the world has finally ended in the morning. To see how to plan my day and also to hear the weather. So to know if I need to water my garden. But that's helped. And then, yeah, I've spent a ton of family time, so that's been good. I highly recommend fostering an animal. I'm fostering a horse that was rescued from a slaughter auction, and I have 30 years of horse training experience, and I've gotten to like really dive into my middle school horse nerd life, and I am embracing it. But it also has a purpose because I'm making him more adoptable. So if you have like, I don't know, the ability to foster dogs or cats right now, because horses are ridiculous, I recommend that. It's been self-care for a lot of my friends. A lot of them are foster failing and adopting the animals they're fostering, but that's fine. Yeah, and then spending a lot of time with family and realizing that's a good thing. Like and then getting to be snarky with my friends who are parents too, and talking about how crazy I'm going. Like I don't think we need to pretend that parenting's easy right now, because it's not. So yeah, just being snide behind their backs. It's been great. I really hope this is totally documented. So my daughter doesn't find this later in YouTube channels.
Right.
I think the point I'm trying to make is just making sure you have friend or community. It doesn't even have to be that close of friends to just be able to gripe, because this is a weird, hard time, and to be able to share that it's not easy has been good. We've had some really bad family stuff happen too. My grandmother passed away, and now my aunt has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it's just like one thing after another. So sending packages to them, just like more masks, or I don't know, feeling like you can contribute seems to help. Like I sent her mint tea because she's gonna have to go through chemo, and chemo really upsets your stomach. So just that alone from my garden was something I could give. Otherwise, I am totally fine with like having, what I do is an anxiety audit in my journal. This is I highly recommend it. If you have a lot of anxiety, just write out every single thing that is stressing the heck out of you, and then let it, like, put it away, put it down, and then go back through when you feel better and like cross off all the stuff that you've actually been able to handle. And that's helped me a lot. So, free therapy advice right there. Check.
Thanks, Eddie.
Laura,
You're not anywhere near me on this whole
You're-
screen, but
you're below me.
okay.
go up.
Good.
Do I have to do like, I guess the baton is in two pieces. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like everyone else started off by talking about like, yes, really stressed. I'm a teacher, you know, so I'm just like, I hate everything. And every piece of news that comes out is just with like attended with like 1,000 different emotions. Like no piece of news makes me go, yeah. Like Lansing Public Schools announced today that they're actually going to go online for the fall. They're kind of like the first big school district to do that. And so like my teacher brain is cheering, but then my other part of my teacher brain is sad. It's just fun. It's just really screwed up. So know that nothing is good about that. What has helped me? Really long bike rides. My favorite route is the KRVT going east because it's a straight shot and you can just kind of like zone out really well. Like you go east at the PFC, you go under the bridge, and you are just riding M whatever that is that way. And it's perfect. It's flat, it's rural, there's weird signs. It's just like you can just kind of zone out. And then you're extremely tired. It's about 20 miles round trip to go all the way and then all the way back. So if I have a free day, I do that, and that helps a ton. The other thing that helps is channeling all my rage into making like the kind of, I don't know, radical social justice curriculum of my dreams for the fall. And just being like, I don't think anyone can say shit about it now. So
Right.
like, I'm going to teach the teenagers bell hooks, and it's just going to be like, whatever. It's just going to like be what it is. So that helps too. Appropriate rage channeling when you can. And kind of realizing that, like, I guess if there's no rules, there truly are no rules. So just do it. I'm also surrounded by everyone who's talked. So I guess I'll go, Jeremy, you're next.
All right. My answer is sex, drugs, and alcohol. Not getting the first. I don't do well in the second. And just recently, the bodega lost their liquor license forever. So we can't drink from there. Wait, those aren't things that make me feel good. We're putting together a garden tour with Common Grounds. So everybody enjoy that because it's centered around the Vine neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I had to unmute myself so you can hear me laughing because you just made me laugh so loud. And I really
yeah, well,
see me laughing, but I'm
that's
like
my
cracking up.
life goals. Sex,
We're
drugs, and
all
alcohol.
laughing.
And if you can't,
Yeah, everybody
can't do
is
anything,
all
you might as well
laughing.
stick with what you know.
I'm
So,
watching everybody laugh, so just
Good,
filling you in,
good.
Jeremy.
Well, I'm just here with my dog sitting in the chair, and that's the most action I've seen since COVID. So let's just go with that. That's what makes me happy. Gardening, tomatoes. Jared, I don't think you've gone.
Jared?
I don't know if he heard you.
Sorry about that.
yeah.
No one's going to be surprised. I play the saxophone. And when that frustrates me, I play the guitar. And that's it. That's my whole strategy.
All right. Is that it for everybody?
We haven't done Gwendolyn or Sarah or
Oh,
you.
sorry. Yeah. I can't.
Or Jen.
For Jen. For
Oh, sorry, Jen. I think
You,
I
Steve.
picked you, which really means nothing in
I
the.
didn't go.
I was like, no.
Yeah, I think the people without videos ended up getting kind of like kicked to the bottom because, you know, it like the way it organizes it, it pushes all the pictures to the top of the list of people. But in absence of a tag in, can I tag you, Gwendolyn?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, no problem. Thank you. My standard, I know I probably am the rarity, but this is really standard operating procedure for me, except that now we're doing it with a mask and sanitizer. The population of folks that I serve, we've been working within the pandemic of racism and discrimination and criminal justice reform since I began doing this work, which is about 10 years now. And so the only thing that is sad is that people are losing their lives because of the pandemic. And that's kind of extremely heartbreaking. But for me, what I tend to do a lot is color. I like to color. I also like anything that has to do with water. So I take a lot of baths. And that's basically, if I can get to a hot tub, that's even better. So my therapy is really water and coloring. And in the midst of COVID, I have been my family has been sewing masks. So that's something that I don't really get a lot of opportunity to do because I am usually very busy, but I've had the opportunity to sew, which is something that my grandmother taught all of us very, very young. And so I've been honing back into my sewing skills and making customized masks for folks and coloring and taking a lot of baths. And that's what I do, besides, you know, giving everybody else hell and keeping myself in good trouble. I hear you, Steve.
Love you. All right. Sarah or Jen?
I can go. Well, I guess one of the things I was really, I feel like I got caught red-handed just now, because when you said what our check-in was, I was immediately like, oh my God, my self-care. Wow, I don't know that I've actually thought about it in I don't know how long. And I have this app that's just all cluttered up with sticky notes, basically, to myself. And there's like a million of them in there. And I immediately like went in there and realized that my little self-care sticky note is like a million miles down the scroll down menu now. And I don't know when the last time I looked at it was. So I was like looking at that and thinking like, God, have I done any of this stuff? But at the top of my sticky note, I put this quote to myself that kind of became my self-care mantra when I made that list for myself, which was during the hardest time that I've lived through in my life so far. Which I guess I kind of have to say, like, also, this isn't it. This isn't the hardest time of my life so far. This is a really, like, I feel like this is one of the hardest times for the world at large, you know, like that we've lived through, because there are just so many, like hundreds of thousands of people literally dying everywhere, plus like a million other catastrophes happening. But when life was the hardest, the quote that I found, and I have no idea who said it, was find the ways that life, the way it is right now, is full of everything we need. And that kind of became a really guiding principle in my life. Like, that is hardcore when things are way, way in the bottom, to be able to do that. And I don't know, like talking, I totally like am on the same page with Aaron about that one, talking. But I think Eddie also, basically what you were saying about journaling, that's the same thing. I think talking in any form is therapeutic, whether it's journaling, talking to your friends. Therapy was amazing for me this morning. I had some like super productive conversations. And getting outside and hiking, and maybe just sitting on my porch and doing nothing and remembering to slow down, which is really important for me in my, I guess what I consider the easing into the second half of my life soon, hopefully. And remembering on those days that are like, some days it's self-care is just remembering to eat and sleep. Some days it's just all you can do is remember to eat and sleep. And Jen, if you're willing to share, I think you're still out there. Uh-oh, you're muted.
Okay, in the self-care world, therapy, water, being outside, which I have decided is now paddleboarding at least once a week. And my normal self-care is to completely give myself to others. So instead, I am learning to set boundaries. That's it. Steve, you're tagged in.
Hmm.
Trying to spend more time with my kids and more quality time with them. So a struggle. It's a struggle, especially the past couple of weeks as I felt more anxious about the fall and so many uncertainties. And both kids have different needs. And, you know, obviously the kids have different needs. They're like two separate people. You know, and I want to make sure that we put it out there that having kids is not necessarily inherently harder right now. It's just different. And just, you know, trying to put on a good, a stiff upper lip and all that for the kids, with still being realistic and being honest at the same time. So I too read a book of fiction, and I do not read fiction, but I have been trying to expand beyond my narrow realms, and I love to read. It's probably my favorite thing. So I've been trying to do that. Everything I read is usually depressing as hell though, so that's not always the best thing to help get me out of here. But going back to some of the things that were real formative when I kind of got into community development, things that I enjoyed and things that are very timely now. So that's what I'm trying to do. Cool. I think, has everyone had things to share? Yes.
All right. That was really great. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Like, I think we all got real just now, and that was so important.
Yes. This board has been, this board and interacting up here has been respite and therapeutic for sure, with the efforts that Magic has done and Gwendolyn has participated in, and the Juneteenth event. I think, you know, responding to the community and responding and going hard in doing that has been really made me feel good about the board and the agency of moving this association into being responding to what the community needs. And so I tip my hat to all of you on that for sure.
Which brings us to our pretty like reformatted, reorganized version of our agenda tonight, which I'm going to try out, see how it goes. I've noticed previously that by putting our action items and our new business nearer to the top of our menu, we tend to get into a lot of territory of discussing things that people just haven't been brought up to speed on during those conversations. So I thought, let's put the updates first and give everybody kind of the current data within which to have our conversations for our new business. So update number 1, 5A, is the considerations in process for the potential move of our offices in light of the vacancy in where Nova has discontinued their operations and their lease with us. And I'm gonna kind of let Steve and Jen give updates on that, where we're at with that. These items, you know, if you have questions about these things, let's try to keep them pretty brief. But I will give a little, just a few, maybe 30 seconds for discussion for each of these brief item updates.
Thank you. Jen, if it's okay with you, I'll just do the briefest of overviews, and then if there are questions, we can do our best to try to answer them.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. So as Sarah mentioned, Nova Virtual Reality closed shop at the beginning of this month. They are located at 806 South Westnedge. As Jen and I went over there and started looking around and trying to figure out who potential tenants might be, we both had the idea that it would be a great opportunity for the VNA to move over there and to bring some partners with us as well, and to open up more opportunities within 814 to bring in agencies or organizations that would also serve the neighborhood. We have moved slightly beyond the kicking the tires stage, and now I think we're looking at the financing part of it. And I don't have hard numbers to share right now, but we will have these numbers at the August Property Management Committee meeting. And at this point, speaking for myself, I like this potential move, and I think it could be very good for both the VNA partners that we're bringing, and then new partners that we'll bring into the fold here as well.
And do you want to add some comments to that?
No, I feel like that covers everything.
Great, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I wanted to add just a couple of little things, kind of side notes for that, being that the potential for that move, one of the things involved in the discussion, or that came up in the discussion, was the potential for, or I guess the side benefit of that being that we would, under the time frame that that we have for prospective tenants for the new space, be able to do a pretty slow, gradual move, within which we would then be able to do updates or refurbishments, remodelings. You know, the sky's the limit with the 814 space that we're currently in to prepare it, and or, you know, potential tenants doing updates to that space in a pretty gradual, slow basis, which is basically the better option than—
30 seconds remaining on this.
Thank you. Which is basically the better option, maybe, I guess, to consider than facing just a long-term commercial vacancy in that street front unit. Kind of makes good use of that downtime. And I don't really have anything else to add to that. So are there any questions about that? Awesome. Great update. The next update is not as exciting, unfortunately. We did get a letter around the end of June that was to notify us of some dire news that our 501c3 tax exempt status is currently, or has effective, I think that date was revoked due to the lapse in tax filings that was discussed in previous meetings. The attorney, sorry, not the attorney, the tax accountant agency, Sean over there, has been working really hard for us, and Steve's been working really hard to rectify the situation as quickly as possible. This is likely, in all likelihood, due to a kind of a lapse in processing of our tax filings that were submitted in April. And we can only assume up to this point that those were not processed with the overwhelm of the IRS system right now in time to prevent what seems like maybe an automatically generated action from the IRS. So likely there will be either some type of retroactive reinstatement, some type of appeal, or you know, I guess other options. And Steve, maybe you can elaborate on some of that if I explained anything or left anything out.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize. This is, well, first and foremost, I apologize. The buck stops at this desk, and I was heartbroken and gobsmacked to receive that letter. And I understand that there's part of the process with the paperwork. I know that we've sent things in, but still, ultimately, this is my responsibility, and mortified that this happened. And a couple of sleepless nights trying to figure out how this happened. Where we're at right now, I've been talking to Sean Kraft, the CPA. Unfortunately, this is just the tail end of his mean season. Taxes were due last Tuesday. He has reassured me that there's a process. He's going to write. I sent him I dropped off the letter in June to so that he can compose his response to the letter. If the response doesn't carry the day, then we will go into a form 1023. Sean has reassured me that this will get us where we need to be. In the interim, I'm not sure what this means at this point, other than we're not on any list. To our benefit, things are so crazy at the IRS right now that they do not have a composed list. The page doesn't work. So my hope is that paperwork gets submitted, we file, and this moves along at a rapid pace. This is the most important thing on my desk right now, and it is what I'm focusing on entirely. And trying to get a hold of someone, a live voice at the IRS is a extreme challenge right now, or is extremely challenging right now. I do have forms, I do have the contact with Sean, and I'm kind of waiting for next steps to figure out what we need to do. I do feel better knowing that we have already submitted taxes, and this wasn't something to let us know, but that they're in the process. But obviously, potentially, this has very big ramifications. I'm working more, trying to
30 seconds.
to the positive. Thank you, Laura. And I can just promise you that I'm going to keep on it. And again, apologize profusely.
Thank you, Steve. And does anybody have questions they want to ask about that or comments to make in relation to that agenda item, which I mentioned in the email earlier?
Just want to note that if we are going to have questions, we do need to motion for an extension of time, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Doesn't sound like there's questions. Obviously, we're going to provide another update for that as we go. If anything major develops, we can make sure the board is made aware in the interim time, but we'll definitely have an update for next month's meeting. And hopefully we'll have resolved part of this, if not all of it by then. Item 5C. You know what? I skipped over my own addition to the agenda. I apologize for that. Jen, I had added item 5A2, the selection of our tenant for 507 Vine, and we're gonna have to kind of finagle that into, I guess, B2 at this point, but just a quick update on that vacancy or that lease ending and the tenant selection for that space.
Do you want me just to go over the tenant selection?
Just whatever you have to add about where we're at with that
Okay.
with that space, and you know, if you have anything that you want to make
over.
aware of.
So the RFP policy or the RFP process ended yesterday. We gave a 10-day process. I did receive 5 submissions for that. Steve and I have reviewed those submissions and we'll make a suggestion to the board. I feel a little apprehensive to do that on a live stream, I guess. If that's okay, I don't really know how that works in this Zoom world where I haven't informed anyone yet.
That's fair. That's totally fair. So I will also be sending an email about some follow-up stuff after the meeting tonight, and I think we can continue with a series of updates and follow-ups in the email thread for the board packet after the meeting. Jared is apparently in the waiting room. If you are,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, there he is. Gwendolyn. Uh-oh. I don't think sound.
Yeah, I just had a just something to add real quick regarding I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Regarding the tenancy and not wanting to say anything because of the Zoom. I guess I'm kind of conflicted on that just because that's kind of the whole point of the sake of transparency and why we allow, I mean, it's a community board meeting and it's open to the public. So I'm just interested in knowing if there's confidentiality factors at play, why it wouldn't be open to public to know what the recommendation is by the staff.
Thank you. That's a good question. I can throw my guess out there, which would be that it sounded like from what you just described, that you haven't yet notified the tenant themselves. And so if the follow-up email were to follow the notification to the tenant, you know, that would then come as maybe a weird surprise for them to find out, you know, in this way. And I think just a weird timing situation. But Jen, am I understanding that right? The way you described that?
Both for the person selected and for the people who will not be chosen. I guess I just thought maybe receiving the information on a live stream open to the public without being able to like professionally talk to that business.
And so since,
also because
Oh, go
when we do these RFPs, we're doing it to build a relationship, whether we choose that business or not, to keep those businesses in mind for future openings. So just from a professional standpoint, I guess I would like the opportunity to kind of like respond to everyone in a way that is respectful to their submission, but I'm happy to be transparent on the
Yeah.
meeting.
I think that just because of the fact that the RFP just closed yesterday, I think it's fair to give our staff time to process that in their operational duties and notify the appropriate parties. And then
30 seconds.
sorry, and then we could even push that out to our August meeting as a subsequent update, just because timing wise, you know, I guess maybe just to hopefully resolve kind of the issue of kind of a question mark surrounding that. But maybe Jen, if you could speak to how that process went. Did you get good submissions? Do you feel comfortable about having made like a selection of somebody for that space who's going to be a good fit, and that, you know, we're in good shape, basically? Like maybe that's what we would
4 minutes
hear about. And is there a motion to extend perhaps for 30 seconds to a minute or so on this one?
Motion to extend 2 minutes.
Thank you, Aaron. Second?
Motion to extend for 2 minutes.
Okay, there were 2 motions to extend for 2 minutes, so I'll consider that a motion, and then
Second.
Gwendolyn's a second. Okay, and so if you want to just take a minute to just kind of, without identifying anyone in particular, just speak to, you know, how did that process go for you, and would the August board meeting be a good time to kind of just present us with the facts and the information, maybe because of the really lack of time to process all of that?
I'm happy to give the information whenever the board feels that it's necessary. We did say that we would come to a conclusion by August 1st,
Yeah.
so maybe waiting for the next board meeting might not be the right thing to do
Okay.
as far as communication goes. But I'm happy to follow up in any way with any information that's necessary. As far as how the process went, I did double check all of the normal outlets that we've used before with RFP processes to make sure that they were posted correctly, and that I felt like they got enough traction or enough shares or enough views. I can't really track that on the website, but I was able to track that on our social media, and it seemed pretty comparable to the other RFP processes that we've done. It was a little different in the sense that I received submissions, you know, that varied from full RFP plans to a brief couple sentences of interest. I have suggested that maybe we look at doing a application long-term for RFPs so that everybody has an equitable opportunity. Sarah and I deep dived today into that policy, and I think we embedded some things that will allow people to have more flexibility, but we were talking about how that could help with the blind piece of the RFP process. As far as all of the submissions, I think would serve the community. Some of them were duplicate services. And I feel like they all correspond with the mission as I know it, for what we're doing with the building. And most of them
2 minutes.
Most of them answered the questions that were embedded within the RFP process. Some did not.
Thank you. Would it just quickly, would it be okay, Jen, just to ask for you to provide, if I could just real quick, if I could ask for you to provide in the, if you could send the invitation for for the August Property Management Committee meeting to the full board, including an outline of the agenda with some of the information and updates that whatever you can provide in that email for those who are not able to attend the meeting but might want some of those outlined points. Maybe we could get the information out a little sooner than next month's board meeting that way. Does that sound like an okay plan?
I'm happy to do that. Again, just knowing that our RFP listed August 1st. If there's any open questions, if everyone could email me, maybe I can encompass that in the same document that Sarah's asking me for.
Thank you. Just some notes in the email will be fine, you know. Okay, any further discussion on this? Please quickly raise your hand. I think, okay, Gwendolyn. Oh,
I have a question still. Is
okay.
are the people that submitted RFPs, are they a secret? I mean, because to me, to have conversations like ambiguously that nobody knows who these people are, nobody knows who we're talking about, I feel like it's like working behind a curtain. Like if it's not a secret to submit an RFP. So I'm just curious, if you're not saying specifically who was chosen to rent the property, I'm not understanding what the secrecy is of who actually submitted the RFPs. It should be public information.
Yeah, no, I don't think that the applications, the identity of the applicants that we received would be, I can't foresee any way that would be privatized information. We have actually had that publicly included in our board documents in the past. I think the only piece of that we're wanting to use discretion with at the moment is the time sensitive nature of the notification to the tenants. Jen, go ahead. Actually, I want to kind of pause and request for a motion to extend the time by any amount in order to respect our timekeeper.
Motion to extend 3 more minutes.
Thank you, Erin. Is there a second? Anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you, Erin.
Second.
I was hoping that the RFPs from each individual business owner would be placed in the board packet for everyone to be reviewed. The board packet came out before that was requested. I tried to call to have proper servicing done on our copy machine today, which I was not able to print out those and include them all in one email, but I do have 5 different emails. I am happy to forward them. I do totally, there's nothing about any business submissions that should be kept from the board. That's not the intention of the staff in any way. So, I mean, as soon as the copy machine gets fixed tomorrow, if you'd like, I can print all of those. I can send them all in one email along with the data that Sarah is asking. I don't know how to go back and change that wasn't included in this board's packet. And I'm not sure how to adjust that for the community.
Well, we can definitely make sure to come back to providing additional details at next month's meeting for the public. And in the meantime, providing the board with some updates in the interim time. And yeah, definitely feel free to email out any of the relevant details to the board that you feel are good for consideration and creating context. And we are going to kind of come back to that briefly in a agenda item under agenda item number 6. So Gwendolyn, did you or does anybody else have anything else to add? Questions, clarification, Eddie?
Having gone through the process, I can just say that having a application would have been much easier. I had to kind of guess a lot of what the board or the committee was going to want, and I think that's going to make it a lot more equitable. So I just wanted to chime in and say that being on the other end, it did feel intimidating, and I've opened many businesses before, so I think that's a great idea to make it a streamlined application process to get everyone on the same page. I didn't know what you all wanted. I submitted a 10-page, business plan, and in the end, like, I don't know if that was what we needed. So,
thank you. Definitely noted. And
If I could just add one, if I could just add one, just for a point of reference, I wasn't necessarily speaking on behalf of the board so much as for the community who repeatedly has come to me and said things that are very despairing about the processes that are kind of unknown to the community. I am sure that the staff at VNA would ensure that the board would definitely know who these people are that have submitted the RFPs. But I think that going forward, we need to figure out a more transparent way so that people are not thinking that we are operating in a way that is not completely transparent, so that folks know who's applying and when it is appropriate to disclose who actually was chosen. I think is just good professional context when we're serving the community. A lot of folks have come to me and said, hey, what are they doing over there? How come we don't know, when apartments are available, when there's leases available? And I think that it's not my personal concern, because I'm sure if I wanted to know, I could just, go to the office and ask Steve or ask Jen. But everybody else doesn't have the ability to do that. So I think that we should embed in the process what are the steps so that the community is aware of who applied, what the criteria is for the applicants to be chosen, and who was subsequently chosen after that process was followed. I think that's something that we should intentionally be trying to do going.
Thank you. That's actually really helpful to hear, because we are in the process of forming that policy, and all of these comments are going to inform the creation of the document that guides all of these future operations. Jen, did you have anything else?
No, I was just going to reference that document that was going to be coming out that was going to go over the RFP policy for commercial spaces when they become available. And I feel like that's a really good suggestion of Gwendolyn on how we're going to list submissions to the public and then who we choose. And that I would love to see that in the policy itself.
Yeah, thank you. This stuff is that's coming up in this conversation. It's actually really helpful to have it all recorded so I can reference it later when I go back to kind of cross-reference things and implement some of that and plug it into to our policy documents. So unless there is further discussion on that one, we will definitely put that on for the August agenda to provide an additional update. Try to include the actual materials either in that board packet or in an email that comes before that, as well as an outline and the information that is being referred to, the relevant information to the community. Provide that publicly in our next meeting too, to kind of give transparency. And I think that brings us, sorry, we kind of went back and forth a little bit there. And I think that brings us to just a very quick update on our reopening, where we're at, and what our plan is. Steve. Still muted.
That was
There we
right. Thank you. Thanks for not letting me go on for a long time too. Have made some phone calls to other neighborhood associations. Northside is back open, and they are, I think, predominantly open door right now. I think they're just taking folks as folks are coming in as needed. Edison has, East Side has gone to strictly invitation or by some sort of, you making some sort of appointment, I guess would be the most appropriate way. And the Edison Neighborhood Association is closed still, and they are undecided as to what their next steps are. So with Sarah and I met last week, we kind of kicked around a couple of ideas, and we do want to open. We've been, even though most places shut down March 13th, we've still had long periods of accessibility where people have been able to come and talk to us. We're looking at, I think, somewhat of a hybrid where we will have some days, probably the days that I'm here all day anyway, Tuesday and Thursdays, as available for walk-ins. And then I think the other days will be by appointment. And want to work with the tenants in here, the office mates, to see how the levels of comfort of everybody here, and making sure that we're all on the same page. On the days that we are open, we would like to make sure that we're documenting folks who come in. We're going to be very observant of the mask rules and laws, and trying to follow best practices to make sure that we're safe while still being flexible enough to respond to residents' needs at this point.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone about how that process is going for us? We have item 5D. So we, on the executive committee for this month, I kind of reoriented our agenda and decided to allocate a majority chunk of our time because it has become increasingly clear that in spite of the kind of urgency towards actionable steps and kind of like materializing just like a whole revisioning process for our organization and all these great aspirational things that we've been talking about, one thing that we end up getting stuck on is the lack of clear and consistent policy and procedure that we can follow now and that we can create to create sort of a sustainable, forward-looking level of improvement in our organization towards equity, towards transparency, towards accessibility, and towards, you know, our greater mission in the future. And so I've refocused our executive committee meetings starting this month and into the foreseeable future. I don't know that there's going to be an end date to this anytime soon, because there's already been kind of created a pretty long list of the needed policies that don't exist, the needed policies that need updating, and everything on from there. So this month we actually had a work session discussing this what we've referred to mostly as like the RFP process up to this point. I think there's been a lot of valid feedback about using that verbiage, and really, I think throwing jargony acronyms into it is just creating a baseline of inaccessibility. So for this first work session, it directed our energies and sort of served as a brainstorming session for creating a policy document, which Jen and I worked on, and Steve contributed to as well this afternoon, for our commercial tenant vacancies, which is something that's been a topic of our conversation recently and recurringly over the years, and often leads to pretty complicated discussions and lots of conflicting and concurring opinions on how things should go, but not any straightforward guidance that exists on how things do go. And so next month, we are going to be focusing in the work sessions, so our executive committee always meets the Tuesday before our full board meeting at the same time, same place, obviously, which is Zoom for now. And everyone will be invited pretty much indefinitely for now to participate with, at least I very much encourage everybody to participate with those work sessions and contribute your ideas, especially if it's a topic that you have some good ideas for, that might be in your wheelhouse. Feel free to step into those and step out of those as you are able. If you'd like to attend for the full meeting, of course, we encourage you to do that as well. But for August, we're going to be working on creating an annual calendar for the neighborhood association, including kind of the board calendar, staff calendar, events calendar, a comprehensive calendar. And that's going to be kind of a guiding document, I think, maybe as much as our mission statement, in really being able to have that umbrella around pretty much everything else that we do
30 seconds.
in a regular basis in this organization. So I think that's about all I have to say about that. I encourage everybody to come next month for that session, or at any second Tuesday of the month. 6 p.m. is when we're going to try to transition over to the work session during our committee meetings. So thank you. And I also kind of just want to put a little bit of fire under everybody. Like, this is really, so far, this has been really productive. This is really a way that you can engage. This is really a way that you can create like an outcome, of a tangible outcome that can help improve the organization for posterity on into the future. So
That's time.
thank you. And then that brings us, are there any questions about that before going on?
Can I?
A motion to add.
There's a
I have
discussion.
a,
Is there a motion
I
to
have a,
extend?
I have a
for,
comment. And could I have a motion for 2 minutes?
motion for 2 minutes? Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Erin. Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
So my comment is this, and it's real simple. It's highly improbable that you can dismantle a structurally racist system without having people at the table that are affected by the inequity. So what I mean is, if the executive board, which consists of all white people, is trying to create an equitable RFP, equitable policy, you're basically doing the same thing that you've already done. If you don't have people that are directly impacted by the inequities that you're trying to fix, you will still not come up with equitable outcomes. So it is something that you have to be very intentional about. So to say you had a meeting with with Steve, Jen, and yourself to work on coming up with an equitable policy regarding commercial rentals is ridiculous. That's impossible to actually do, because you're talking about 3 white people that have never been impacted by the inequities that they're trying to dispel. So without having people at the table, you are still creating the same cycle of disproportionality to the residents that you serve. So I think that before you start trying to create policies with the same people at the table, you probably should be more intentional about recruiting people that have been affected by the inequities that you're trying to dispel or you're trying to eradicate. Does everybody understand what I'm?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's fair criticism. I think we went into this workshop today with just trying to come up with a foundation of a document that we could put in front of a committee or an ad hoc committee and have them take a look at it. We wanted to just get some things in place so we weren't going in blind. I've also talked to Dorla Bonner Coleman from the city of Kalamazoo, and she is willing to take a look at this draft document or a finished document and provide feedback as well. So by no way, shape, means, or forms did we think that this was like even the beginning of the end. This was just to start to get the ball rolling. And I think, yeah, speaking for myself, I would be presumptuous to think that I would be in a position to adequately, honestly address those concerns. So I definitely hear what you're saying, Gwendolyn, and I want to assure you that by no means is this the document that we're looking for people to sign. This is just something to start the process, if you will.
That's time.
Yeah. Thank you, Gwendolyn. I'm just going to add a quick comment on that as well.
Definitely.
If I could just add a quick comment on that as well. Yeah, I would second a few things that Steve said, but mostly I want to basically tell you, Gwendolyn, that pretty much everything that you just said was, I will say, was actually in a written out speech that I was coming to last month's meeting with, that I wanted to present to the board, which is to say that for as long as our leadership body on this organization remains 100% white, we are doing nothing but upholding and sustaining and perpetuating the system of white supremacy. And until we can include different voices in the decision-making and the places of power within our organization, then that's all we're going to be doing. That being said, in absence of that at this point, we decided to move forward with a first step, which was, rather than approaching people to try to say, will you please participate in this process to help to create equity within our organization by creating policies for us, I guess we decided to take an approach of creating a draft with which we could have a substantial attempt at something to present for critique, for criticism, for somebody to look at and say, this is absolute garbage, throw it out and start again. And decided that that was maybe a better approach than to just kind of go empty-handed and ask for people to hold our hands through that process. But I definitely recognize that there is absolutely no way we can come out of this undertaking with any policy whatsoever that has not had engagement from a variety of different voices and feedback that is comprehensive and that speaks to the actual lived experiences that know a hell of a lot more about the inequities that we're trying to dismantle in these processes. So I really thank everybody who can participate in that process with us. And in item 6D, I'm going to talk a little bit about the policy that we've drafted and what the next steps are going to be for that. And then how that process is hopefully going to go. And maybe there are ways that we can go through that process better. But I just want to 100% validate and echo everything that you said, Gwendolyn. Does anybody have anything else to add? And I'm sorry, I totally forgot to extend the time on that one and got a little long-winded, as I'm prone to do sometimes. My apologies. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that one, we will kind of come back to that just a little bit. But very briefly, hopefully, we have a quick update. Just kind of wanted to make sure that the stakeholders of this organization that are here tonight were aware that we did receive an invitation of sorts from, I put KPDS, I'm sure hopefully you assumed that that was a typo, but from KDPS, a representative who took issue with basically with the statement that was published on our website and wanted to point out the inaccuracies within that statement and be able to provide us with additional details to enlighten us on some of the situations that they think they have a different story for. I spoke with Steve about that. I didn't feel any hesitation in speaking for the board in politely declining that invitation, which was, by the way, an in-person invitation to go to the police headquarters and receive a PowerPoint presentation of some sort, which would provide us with those updates. But politely declined that invitation in lieu of requesting that they submit any information to us that they have in terms of updates or clarifications for us to review. And those of us who wish to review that information are welcome to do so. And those of us who wish to decline are welcome to decline. And after they would like to provide that information, to us and we've had some time to review it, we can decide whether we would like to engage in any sort of dialogue with them rather than a presentation, which I don't think that we would, you know, I forgive me if I overstepped in assuming the intentions of the board in that instance, but I did ask that we propose for the possibility of, if there is any interaction and a dialogue rather than a presentation format. Steve, do you have anything to add to the update? And then I'll open it up for comments, questions.
As you can imagine, they're uncomfortable conversations, and the fact that they happen sort of unsolicited in the parking lot from officer out of an unmarked car, problematic across the board. I appreciate Sarah kind of laying it out there for us. I've had this conversation 3 times now, and today was with our officer, our NLO officer, Ryan Shankin. And of the 3 conversations I've had, he's the one that's most in harmony with our position here. And he has a better understanding of what it is we're looking for and how this process should work. So again, I'm just following up with Sarah's directive, and that we are potentially going to be receiving dates from the chief of police to have this conversation. I think we'll respond in kind again, that we're uncomfortable with being, well, that we ideally we'd like to review the data and information and videos on our own, rather than have it presented to us. And then perhaps we'll have a follow-up conversation if we think there's merit. Each conversation has gotten easier for me as we've gotten further away from the echelon brass, as I've been able to really get down to and really speak quite frankly about our concerns with both the tone and tenor of how this invitation was extended and what the content of this invitation is supposed to reveal to us. So again, we're in a holding pattern right now, and at this point, I don't know that there's a whole lot of merit to putting a lot of energy to our collective ire focusing on this misstep, I guess, if you will.
Are there any questions or comments about that? I think it's something that we can probably return to if they do decide to submit some information to us for review. Seems like that might be the next step, unless there's anything, any alternative or additional action anyone would like to propose in response to that. Thank you. Are there other updates? I guess, you know, especially because the way I reformatted the agenda tonight, I pretty much nixed the committee reports in lieu of trying to plug the vital information from those reports into the actual agenda itself, but that kind of necessitated a little bit of an open item for anything that might have been missed. So anything that maybe would have been relevant to either a committee report or really even just any updates that don't quite fall into the comment, question, discussion area, or that people want to elevate at this point in the meeting, this is the time for that. Thank you. Well, that worked out okay, I guess. Item 6 on our agenda, which is the new business and action items. The first one being that we have received a request from KNHS from Matt Masaryk, the construction director of KNHS, that requests for the VNA's support of the acquisition of, I believe, 4 parcels. Not sure if there are houses already on all of those. I think there are, but on Fellows and Burr Oak Street, in order to renovate.
There we skipped the zoning.
That's it.
Oh my gosh, Maggie, thank you for catching that. Sorry about that. We had added that on and under the updates, yeah.
Share my screen. Jared, can you enable me to share the screen?
Sorry. Yeah, let me grab that. My mute by spacebar is not working right. Actually, no, Steve is the administrator, not me. Sorry. Or the host.
Okay. Maggie, would you like to jump back to that item quickly?
Sure.
Sorry about that. I was looking at the unupdated version of the agenda. Totally forgot about that one.
No, no, it's totally understandable. I was gonna try to share just the really couple PowerPoints that the city had put together explaining the different zones, because they're voting on it this week. But since I can't share, I'll just pull out of my head what I remember and what I can tell you from what I'm looking at. So they're basically trying to clean up some of the places that are zoned commercial, and the place where it overlaps with us, they're adding 4 new zoning categories. And the 2 that are most relevant for us are Live Work 1 and Live Work 2, which means that you can have a home that's essentially a residence, but the main floor, the bottom floor, can be commercial. And if I remember correctly, the only part that I thought was a little hinky was that in Live Work 2, you had to have multiple units in the residential portion of the building, which seemed to me like there might be places where we would have buildings that are single owner homes with a commercial place in the bottom. But I think that was really the only part where it overlapped with us. And then the part that we're actually about to talk about is, I think, going to be zoned RM 36. I haven't had a chance to look at it super closely, which is like a multiple. Yeah. So it's proposed to be changed to RM 36 because it's currently commercial, and RM 36 is one of their new zones. So it allows you to have a little bit more flexibility. So the city's trying to make a bunch of new zones that make it be more flexible and reflect what people are actually doing in the buildings, as opposed to just having commercial, which is pretty cookie cutter. And that part of it also affects the central business district, but we have very little overlap with that in our neighborhood. So I don't know if anyone attended any of the work sessions that here. I think Jeremy was there, and I think you were there too, Sarah. Yeah, so I don't know if we wanted to send the Housing Commission any thoughts on that, or if everyone thought it sounded cool.
If I could, I just wanted to add, just for a point of reference, the live work node, it doesn't have to be multiple units. As long as there's one livable habitat and one working space, it doesn't have to be multiple spaces. That's the zoning that we're using for the new Northside Cultural Business District, where the tiny houses are going, which is, we are the first new zone that's being incorporated on the north side. And that zone was specifically designated based on the accessory dwelling units that we're putting on that spot. So it doesn't have to be multiple occupancies, and it doesn't have to be multiple businesses. It could be one business and one unit.
No.
I did attend a couple of the work sessions that they did where they took community feedback on that. And I remember asking, kind of grilling Rebecca Kick pretty rigorously on this Live Work 1 stuff. I apologize that I'm pretty unprepared to go into details about what the conversation entailed or what the details of it were, because that was many months ago and those are kind of lost to me at this point. But I do remember kind of coming away from that conversation.
30 seconds.
Of my concerns having been resolved, because there are some kind of obvious red flags, but she was actually able to answer those questions pretty well. And I didn't really come away from it with any big concerns, other than what I did hear a lot of at those meetings were the some of the owners of those properties trying to kind of push a conversation about their reservations of the rezoning, and quite honestly, a lot of it really sounded like a really fundamental resistance to change. I do remember noting that the rezoning actually does create some improvements And I couldn't find a whole lot of cons, but again, I apologize. I don't have a lot to elaborate on the details of that. So it was so long ago at this point.
Time.
Thank you. Does anybody else have things to add on that discussion? Thank you for that update, Maggie. I also, yeah, I really encourage everybody to kind of participate in that process and be, you know, kind of following the city on social media is a good way, or city planning and development and stuff like that is a good way to be made aware as the steps of those process are announced to the public, if you don't already. Jumping back to KNHS, Steve, if you want to quickly kind of present that agenda item 6A, and they're basically, it sounds like, seeking kind of our seal of approval on their acquisition of those properties in order to renovate them kind of in the traditional style that KNHS does, and then create affordable housing that is, you know, livable out of places that would otherwise have maybe been condemnable. I don't personally know the shape of these properties, but yeah. Steve, do you have details about that at all to share? You're on mute still.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Sarah. These are properties that KNHS bought a few years back to try to, as part of a larger project that they wanted to do. In case folks don't know exactly where we're talking about, this is the tail end of South Burdick, within Vine. Burdick to the east, Fellows Court comes off of that, and it goes to South Rose Street, Burr Oak, just below there, and Wall Street. So it gives you like kind of the southeast quadrant of the neighborhood, if you will. And these are properties that that KNHS purchased a few years back with the intention of making into row houses. The economy has changed to the point that that's not a viable or feasible option for them at this point. So they're looking to do, I think, single unit occupancy. I'm not sure what Matt's letter said. I got to cue that up, but it's yeah, they've historically been single family residential lots, but at some point were changed to commercial zone parcels. And this request is to reinstate the residential zoning, which is what Maggie said, the RM36. And the plan is to build affordable single housing on those lots. They are required to by the city's charter and by working with the city here. So I think it's 80% of AMI is what the model that they're working with. And I'm not sure what the impetus is for them to be asking us for this particular zoning request, but I know that it has come down from the top. I've talked to Pete Eldridge, and as Gwendolyn pointed out, to Christina Anderson as well. So I've talked to Matt Lager, I've talked to Matt Milzark to try to figure out, you know, are there blind areas to this that I'm not seeing? What would be objectionable to this? For them, it's really just kind of a changing of the model that they were using when they could develop this vision, as well as asking for the rezoning to get these back in line with what they were hoping for, which is the residential zone.
Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's cool. Forgive me for not being super informed about KNHS's process and what they're usually up to, but is there a particular reason that they're like looking for our approval or a word from us on this?
Aaron, as near as I can tell, they were asked to. I know that they were asked to from the city planner, from Pete Eldridge. Quite honestly, what I can't figure out is why they were asked. That's why I'm trying to figure out if there's something I'm just not seeing, if there's a blind spot. And I used to be on their project committee when they purchased these houses. I don't know of anything that would make it objectionable. I don't remember. Nobody's being removed from these houses or anything. It's just it really is just, as far as I can tell, a straightforward request for rezoning. But that is, in my mind, I am curious as to why they kind of got the lean from the city to need need this letter from us when it really hasn't been a requirement for them to do much in the city, in the neighborhood prior.
I think this is because of the housing committee.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think there's a lot of different irons in the fire, and I don't know.
We went to the last, it wasn't the, yeah, we went to the last zoning board of appeals meeting when they gave approval for the new development on Rose. And they were supposed to be talking about the new development at the corner of Cedar. They did not talk about the redevelopment at the corner of Cedar. And I asked them to do more outreach to the neighborhoods so that we didn't get blindsided, so that our input was put in. So
Yeah.
that's probably why.
Yeah.
we went
I
back.
can speak to having attended several city commission meetings as well involving rezoning requests. And that was kind of a constant push from public comment and speakers that the city and entities need to be more transparent and solicit for more community feedback for these type of rezoning and other changes made. And I don't know that just kind of asking for the endorsement from the Vine Neighborhood Association is whether that is, you know, a legitimate fulfillment of that request, or maybe potentially an attempt to check off that box of having solicited for community feedback. But I definitely encourage everyone who may be watching, and I don't know if we have a huge audience for these meetings, but anyone who is here tonight or who may be watching to give your feedback on that request, if it's relevant to your neck of the woods, or if you have thoughts or opinions about that. As a board, do we have anyone who would like to comment on, you know, sentiments about the prospect of endorsing that acquisition by KNHS? And Steve, maybe do you have any like comments to make in terms of, you know, where you fall on that question that they posed to us, or that Matt sent in the letter? And you're muted. Still muted. Sorry.
It's the best. It's for the best. We do have the zoning commission and the planning commission meets next Wednesday at 7 p.m. So I certainly do not have to rush off a letter of support at this time. I think maybe what would be prudent is we could the board could approve a letter pending conversations with myself, Christina Anderson, and Pete Eldridge. And if there's anything that I think is objectionable, or that I think that the board may find objectionable, I can just we can connect via email or however we want to do it, and we can stop that process if we find it's something that's disagreeable and we don't want to sign off on.
That sounds like a proposal for a motion to approve a letter of endorsement of that pending the outcome of those meetings and conversations.
Yep. I can also talk with Emily Greenman Wright, and Margaret, if there's anybody else that you think I should. Unfortunately, in this particular area of the neighborhood, I don't have a lot of personal contacts that I would know that would be someone that I would be able to have a conversation with.
Is this something that we as an organization might be able to use our social media prowess to kind of disseminate that information to the neighborhood, to solicit for their feedback? And if in fact that is the objective of the city, to try to expand their outreach. We do have a pretty good network in the Vine neighborhood, and could potentially get comments from people who are obviously mostly not in this room tonight. Zoom room tonight, to to see if there are people who are who that hits closer to home for and might have opinions on the organization in support or against. You know, honestly, I don't think I have enough information to personally fall on one side or the other of that.
1 minute.
Thank you.
I would like to go over and walk through the space and see what it looks like. The home they're referencing that they just built is just down the street from me. So I have a pretty good handle on what it looks like. So I'll wander down and take a look, and I'll talk to you, Steve, if I think that this seems like a reasonable place to put those. I mean, they're not asking for any changes in density. They're not asking for anything that's out of the nature of what the rest of the neighborhood looks like.
Mhm.
But wander down and see what it looks like now.
I've gone down to the home. I think it looks, it's a
30
good
seconds.
neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that, you know, they've built houses on Wall Street and Borough. Yeah, for sure, Maggie, we could go down there together if we wanted to just take a look at it.
Quickly, Steve, do you know whether the time frame of this acquisition would allow for bringing it back for a revisiting the conversation at our August meeting with a little bit more information to go on?
That's time.
This is getting approved on the 20th.
And can we get a motion to extend the conversation at all on this?
Motion to extend 2 minutes.
Thank you, Aaron Harris. Second?
No
one seconds.
I'll second. I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Okay, Aaron, thank you. Steve, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, we would probably derail this if we said like we weren't going to write a letter. I'm not sure what we would do, but it would probably compromise the process.
Mm-hmm. And when did you receive the letter from Matt?
And the letter from Matt came yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay.
Yes. And
Honestly, I personally don't feel like that's quite enough lead time for us as a board to have become knowledgeable of whether there are any reasons to not support this. But at the same time, you know, based on our longstanding relationship and history with KNHS, we also have the option of, you know, really just moving forward and approving that as a good faith effort in support of their organization. There are multiple options before us.
there will also be opportunities at the meeting. It will be a Zoom meeting. So there's opportunities we could, if we tune in, we can, in the vibe that we're picking up from.
Go ask them if they have a room.
I'm sorry? There's
Sorry about that.
opportunity to participate at the Zoom meeting next Wednesday. And if we're in the meeting or we're watching the meeting and it looks as if there's a groundswell of discontent at this, I think we could easily pump the brakes on it. And I think we're within our rights to say with the information we had, we wanted to proceed. Now that more information has become available.
30 seconds.
We're hesitant.
Steve, would it be possible for you to just email the board for an email endorsement once you've received a little bit more information in time for it to be processed where it wouldn't derail the project?
Yes, and I can send
Okay.
the actual notice for the hearing after the printer. I don't know that faxing stuff is available, but
Yeah, I feel it's reasonable to just defer this to digital correspondence or maybe a digital vote. And I don't think we were really given enough lead time to make an informed decision about this. So maybe pushing it out until whatever point we can receive that information digitally. Does anybody want to make any motions about this?
Yeah, I'll make the motion, but I just wanted to note that information about when the notice of the meeting's in our board packet.
Okay. It was in the board packet. Unfortunately, again, like I did send the materials really late this time, and again, I'm not going to try to make excuses for that, but I want to actually ask for a motion to extend if we are going to entertain a motion on this topic.
Motion to extend the discussion for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron Bensinger. And I think, Maggie, you had a motion.
If I could,
Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
I don't have a motion. I could come up with a motion, but I just want to say that I think that anything that's going to provide affordable housing to my neighborhood residents, save that, you know, there's a upheaval or uproar from the community that just absolutely does not want it. I think that in good faith and in good conscience of the relationship that VNA has had with KNHS, I think that we should support their acquisition. And if we find out that there's some overwhelming discontent, then we should, then look at it differently. But I think that we should support an organization that has been a partner with mine for I don't even know how long, and the ability to provide affordable housing to people. We know that we have a major homelessness issue, and if anything that we do that slows down the process of getting houses built for people, I think is a disservice to our residents. And I think that if we have any part in moving this process along, I think that's what we should do.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Those are really valuable comments. It sounded like maybe, it didn't sound like that was an actual motion, but did you want to make that a motion to submit the letter of support?
Everything I said, I make it a motion to submit the letter of support.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Jeremy, thank you. And all in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Raising my hand as well. Any opposed?
Aye.
Who was, okay, I think there was a delay again. Was there any opposed? Thank you. Okay, passes unanimously. Were there any abstentions? I don't think there were any abstentions. I think I saw everybody.
Oh, who seconded it? That was Jeremy. Got it.
Thank you. Yep. And then that brings us to item 6B. This one was kind of, I regret that we didn't really take an opportunity to discuss this in any greater detail previously, because I think this ordinance has been kind of out there in the ether for a while now. I don't know how many of us are familiar with the Patrice Griffin's housing equity ordinance, and it is currently being heavily discussed and scrutinized by the City Commission. I know it came up last night. I have to admit my utter ignorance because I have not yet had an opportunity to watch last night's City Commission meeting. So one of the first things I wanted to ask was whether anyone is up to date on the outcome of the discussion around this issue from last night's City Commission meeting. The other reason I wanted to bring it up is because in a timely way, there is the possibility that we as a board and an organization may want to consider whether we would like to issue a formal statement. I don't know how many of us are familiar with enough with the ordinance to feel comfortable doing that tonight. It's possible that might not be able to come to pass, or we can have a discussion of everyone's opinions on that. I just kind of wanted to put it out there and give us some time to address it and to kind of elevate that. I personally think that it is one of the best pieces of legislation proposed in many years in the city of Kalamazoo, before the city of Kalamazoo. And I guess first, I kind of want to ask if anyone had the opportunity to apprise themselves of all of the details of last night's City Commission meeting. I know there were discussions and much public comment about the ordinance, and it's possible that we were all really busy in the last 24 hours, so that's understandable too.
Say I can give a update on it.
Thank you,
I've
Jeremy.
been following it. The housing equity that Patrice's new proposal would really include focuses down on renters' rights, how previous evictions can be used for future decisions of housing, criminal records, credit reports, and how applications have to be received and enacted in an equitable manner to establish residents based on rentals. More specifically, towards home ownership, it is less specific in regards to what housing equity it actually entails, but it would be following more in the lines of the International Property Code Management in regards to safety concerns or approval of HUD housing and FSA house, first time homeowners housing, FHA, excuse me. And it allows for a greater amount of leniency in owners, or excuse me, purchasers' rights as far as down payments that could be received through subsidized services like KNHS and through community opportunities through grant and development work. The part that I don't know if this is Patrice's goal, but it seems very evident that it is very heavy laden on the renters' rights and what possibilities. It doesn't really give, in my opinion, it's not as stringent maybe as what the Renters Union of Kalamazoo is asking for, but it's more generally offering a fair shake to everybody to not only get into a apartment or home, but to stay in one over a extended duration, and not allowing penalties, fines, fees, and things of that nature to become the means of homelessness.
Yeah. One of the, if I can add for context, one of the most controversial elements of the ordinance, because I didn't see last night's meeting, but I did watch the full previous month's meeting in which this came up a lot. It was actually brought up by, I think, Commissioner Cunningham, and was also the topic of a lot of public comment from last month. And the biggest controversy, and really the only dissenting opinions that I heard in hours upon hours of public comments, were from landlords who did not like that we were going to be limited in who they were allowed to turn down that applies for housing at their properties, and are worried that they're going to end up with tenants that they are going to have problems with. That was literally the only nay votes that I heard any opinions from, and I did watch the entire public comment. It was kind of a very gripping meeting last month. And also, I believe the goal is to actually try to push this ordinance through for a vote in the near future. I think it would be timely if we were able to come to a decision this evening. I think we barely still have quorum for that. And I think that would be able to be put out to the public in advance of, and kind of to surround the current discussion about.
And this does not remove landlord rights at all. Well, it does not remove landlord rights, but it requires that landlords follow all applicable laws and fully have to really be up to code with what rental agreements and processes they use.
Yeah.
It's not a removal of their rights. It's actually a tightening of some of the leniency that's been given in times past.
Yeah, and I'll mention that Patrice's record kind of speaks for itself as well. She has been a landlord, and she's been working in this field for a very, very long time. strangely enough, she actually used to have my job. And, you know, I may be a little biased as she's kind of become one of my personal role models, but I absolutely 100% personally would endorse this piece of legislation. I don't really hesitate to inject my subjectivity into the conversation about this, but if people don't really have the familiarity with it and wanted more time to do that, we could try to consider alternatives. But would anyone have any other questions about it, or discussion, or a motion?
I haven't read the entirety of the ordinance. I've read parts of it. And the rental section does not actually take any powers of choice away from landlords. It just says you cannot out of hand reject people across the board for having specific conditions like
Right.
evictions
Right.
or evictions. And so they can still not rent to that person. They just can't have a rule saying, I will not take any convicts. I will not take anyone who has an eviction. I think Section 8 might be in there too. I can't remember. It's been about 6
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. And actually, to elaborate on that, the specific part of that is controversial is that by stripping out the unilateral abilities of landlords to just have a criteria upon which they can deny every application that meets a certain criteria, and basically it legislates that it transfers that into a kind of case-by-case consideration of each tenant. What that effectively does is creates a whole lot more liability for the landlord in denying certain
1 minute.
and opens them up to you know, a lot more scrutiny for why they made the decisions that they made. It kind of puts the burden of proof of why they are denying applicants on the landlord. I think as a landlord myself, that is 100% appropriate. And there are a lot of landlords that are really upset about that right now. Any other questions, discussion, or motion?
I make a motion that we submit a letter of support for Patrice Griffin's housing equity proposal.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
I'll
Aaron
second.
Harris and Aaron Bensinger. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. For item 6C, for the sake of time, I want to go ahead and I want to push that item 6C out to next month. We are definitely going to be coming back to it, but it is not a action item that will affect operations between now and next month in a way that will be limiting in any way in relation to that topic. It will need to be addressed, but for the sake of time, I think I'm going to just go ahead and push that one out to our August meeting, unless there's anybody who really feels the need to do otherwise. And then just real quickly, I guess the commercial vacancy policy, item 6D, really could have been an update, because where we got with our working session this afternoon is to that draft that was mentioned earlier. And I think some good work was done to try to create an outline, a template for what we can put out there to say, please, you know, give us feedback, scrutinize this. My intention is to put that Google Doc in the board's hands within the next few days, and open that up for feedback. And I really want to, I really kind of want to push on this one. I really want to push everybody to give a good faith commitment of just at least a little bit of your time to review this policy, read it in full, and give at least 1 or 2 or 20 little notes of honest feedback on what you think could be better, what you think could be worded differently. And there are 3 sections in the policy that I want to highlight quickly right now, that I will highlight in the email when I send that out as well. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that within this policy for our process for our commercial vacancies, which does not exist currently, we do not have a current policy for this. Within that policy, there are 3 pieces of it that I think really require the input from the board and from a variety of different voices and from the voices of people who are affected by this, more than anything. And those 3 pieces of it are going to be what is a little bit of a bold move in trying to suggest that we create a mission statement for this policy, which I put at the preface of the policy itself. And that mission statement is definitely something that really will need heavy scrutiny in order to guide the way that this policy is implemented. There is the section about solicitation for submissions. That's the section that's about how are we going to get this, how are we going to get word out to the community about available opportunities for people? What are the ways that we want to write into the document and say there are so many ways that we can reach people to make our spaces and our opportunities more accessible and more transparent for everyone. And the third one is the section that is in relation to our tenant selection criteria and what are the guiding principles by which we will make selections of tenants for that space. There's a lot of other stuff in there, but those are the 3 sections I want to draw everyone's attention to. And I really will, before we go forward at all with this, it requires more voices in the room, different voices in the room. And Steve's going to put a draft after it goes to the board. He's going to put that draft over to Dorla and see what she has to say about it. And hopefully it'll be a lot. And we hope that by next month's meeting, we can have something to bring to the board as at least maybe an initial draft for consideration. So that is what I really have to say about that. It's more of an update. There's not really an action to take on that. I'm going to be sending that email out to you all in the next couple days here. So please give attention and a little bit of your time to that, because this is a really, really important part of what we do as a board and the impact that we can leave on the organization and the community for many years to come. Because I promise you, this policy, once it's created and enacted, is not going to get updated for quite a while. Knowing how things go in small organizations like ours with very limited resources. I think that was the last of our meat of our agenda, of our specifics, and we are kind of in the beyond overtime territory at this point. So I still want to elevate and prioritize the opportunity for people to engage with things that they may not have had the opportunity to get into the agenda in advance. Are there comments, questions, or any discussion items that people need to bring to the board tonight? And we will take some time for that. I guess before I do that, I can also include in there, if you have any comments or questions additionally about that policy that I was just referring to, feel free to bring those up as well. All right. Quickly, because I'm sure it's difficult for everyone to be looking at an agenda and participating in a Zoom meeting at the same time. Upcoming for us, we have a scheduled date for White Caucus, Tuesday, July 28th at 6 p.m. I will be sending the Zoom invitation for that. If anyone in our organization, if you lovely women of color in our organization want to, have questions about that, or would like to contribute your thoughts about that, you're welcome to do that now. You're also welcome to kind of do that privately. I would love to hear feedback about that, if there is any. I guess I want to welcome that, but I also want to mention that that's not at all required or necessary. And then did anybody, let's see. Oh, sorry. I'm going to try to go quickly here. We have the Meetup and Eat Up, which is an awesome thing that the YMCA does at sites all over the city. They've been doing it for quite a while now. And we have become a host site for that. Apologize, my dogs are freaking out. They're in overtime right now as well. We've become a host site for that on Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 to 12:30. So that's a really awesome development for us. And again, a reminder that our next month's executive committee meeting on August 11th at 6 p.m. is the part in which we will be devoting a work session to creating an annual calendar. And then we'll probably have some more info and updates about this item 8D, the night market. This is a project that's been developed in partnership with the city and some organization that the city has hired to help coordinate this new event, but we'll have some future like TBA announcements about that when it gets on the actual calendar. National Night Out, we'll have to have some announcements in the future as well. So with that, my dogs literally just busted into the room and broke the door down. So I think unless anybody has anything else that they want to add, I know that we've gone way over right now, but Steve and I talked earlier about the possibility of leaving the room open for a little bit after the meeting, in case anyone just wants to, like overextend themselves and participate with just a little bit of interaction. Give us the ability to have some of those conversations that normally would have occurred in normal circumstances. We are adjourned, but anyone who wants to stick around, we'll leave the room open for a little bit. But if you're way done and have a million things to attend to, it was great to see all your faces. And thank you so much for engaging in really important discussions tonight. That was a loaded agenda. And we did go over time, but we covered a lot of ground. So thank you, especially if you're still here right now. And I'm gonna go let my dogs out real quick, but that'll take me just a minute and then I'll be back if anybody does want to stick around.
Thanks for timekeeping, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
That was like the best that went. Yeah,
You had to say, hey, respect me. And then we're like, oh, yes.
It was great. Yeah, I think having everyone be really aware of that made that go much more smoothly. So thanks everyone for that. That was really appreciated.
For awareness, yeah.
Well, this is like a reenactment of like when we all get up and start talking to each other at the end, like shuffle our stuff and then we start packing up and
But here's the other piece we have to consider.
check my phone. Okay, yeah, I can.
Live streaming though, that's the question.
Oh, yeah.
Can we turn the live streaming part on?
Oh, shikes.
Steve, do you know how to do that? Because Jared's gone.
I passed the buck along to Aaron.
Well, click on the top up there where it says live on YouTube and click the drop down and see if it'll let you get out of it, because it won't let me.